Developing psychic abilities is one of the easiest and most exciting ways to become something more than ordinary, get out of mundanity, and bring purpose to your life. You already have it within you to perceive way beyond the five physical senses. We're talking remote viewing, precognition, mind reading, that level of power. You just haven't been taught how. This video will take you through exactly how to go from no psychic ability whatsoever to finding out what yours is, to using it for the first time, and how to keep getting better. I'm taking a totally different approach than the vague spirituality you might have heard before, by telling you what I know works from personal experience. We'll go through a concise explanation so you know the theory behind the practice, and then a simple 3-step technique that should work for anyone and takes maybe 15 minutes. It's seriously that easy, so let's get started. Very quick definition: psychic abilities are perceiving information about a chosen target using spiritual means, by which I mean something beyond the five physical senses and the mind. There's lots of different ones, but for all of them, you choose the target and when you want to do it. And it's not just talking to the dead or reading someone's fortune. You can learn to read pretty much anything and use it in much more creative ways than this. The most important thing for you to know is that you are already naturally psychic. You don't need to be born with some extraordinary gift, do an activation, get spirit guides, and you definitely don't need to buy tarot cards or a crystal ball. These are complete myths, because, as I'm about to explain, you already have all the spiritual equipment you need to be psychic. If this seems difficult to believe, let me use a quick physical metaphor to explain the spiritual. For example, you don't feel your liver working, but it's constantly regulating your blood chemistry and helping with digestion. All these amazing biological processes happen automatically, without you having to know about it or put effort in. You're just designed to do it. On a spiritual level, which is just another layer of reality existing on top of the physical, you have the equivalent of organs, areas with specialized functions, like the third eye. Even if you aren't aware of them day to day, they're working all the time, same as the physical organs. Psychic perception is just another natural function, like digestion, and you have different areas that help in it, the third eye, the energetic field, and so on. You can use psychic abilities without having to know exactly how it all works. Same way your liver works without you having to read an anatomy textbook. Same way you know how to move your arm without receiving instructions. It's designed to do it. You're designed to be psychic. But you're maybe wondering, if psychic abilities are so natural and easy, then why aren't we all psychic already? Unfortunately, our abilities have become dormant through lack of use. Another biological metaphor will help explain this. If you don't use a muscle, what's going to happen? It's still there, but it's going to waste away, become weak. Other muscles will have to work harder to keep you functioning, and you'll never be as good as you could be. Likewise, if you don't believe in psychic abilities, never even try to use them, they're going to waste away, until you aren't able to easily perceive with them. Your five physical senses and logical mind become overly dominant to compensate. You can still perceive and work things out, get by in life, but you're never going to reach your full potential, and do what you're meant to be able to do. The only reason psychic abilities seem like a rare gift is that 99.9% of the population are like this. They've never even tried to practice them. So that muscle has wasted away. You can be different though. Unleash your potential if you take a few minutes to try this out. But where do you even start? Well, just like some people are physically built for athletics, we're all spiritually built differently, which lends itself to different psychic abilities. If you had a naturally strong third eye, you're going to have a talent for clairvoyance, and it would make sense to start there. You start with your strongest ability, the one that comes naturally. That way you become the most powerful in the least time, and with the least effort. Having learnt how to develop that one psychic ability, you can go back and work on the others, having done the easy tutorial first. So what might your natural psychic ability be? Most people will have one dominant sense out of the four listed here on the left. So you're already clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairaudient, or claircognizant. We just need to bring it out of dormancy. Just like the senses, you'll have one or two targets you're naturally best at reading, and we start there. Quick note, this list isn't every possible target, and you don't need to be able to do all of them. Just focus on developing the ones you're naturally talented at, especially at first. That's the explanation done. So let's move on to the 3 steps to start developing psychic abilities for beginners. The first is to find out your dominant psychic sense. You do this by sitting in a quiet environment where you can concentrate and mentally asking your soul what your natural psychic sense is. You'll experience something in response, and that's your answer. That's what your sense feels like to use. Just to explain, your soul is just another spiritual part of you. It's deep within, not somewhere else, and one of its main functions is to spiritually guide the main consciousness, that's you. So that's why we're asking the soul. It will know what the sense is and be able to communicate this to you. If you ask and get a pressure in the ears, you're probably clairaudient. If it's sudden mental images, then seeing is your dominant sense. It should be fairly intuitive. There's a chance you might have 2 that are equally as strong, and you'll sort of get both at the same time. Or you might not get much initially. If either happens, try stating your intention out loud, if possible, or more clearly in your head. So you'd say or think something like, I intend to experience my natural psychic sense as truthfully, clearly, and vividly as possible. Or, soul, please show me my natural psychic sense in the way I can best understand. Step 2 is asking your soul, in the same way, what your natural psychic target is, what you're best at reading. Now this can be a bit trickier because there's a lot more possible answers, which is why we do the sense first. But it's the same principles. Your soul will show you the answer. If you suddenly feel all emotional in your heart, that's empathy. If you see somewhere distant you've never been to before, it might be remote locations. You can ask your soul for more clarity, detail, vividness, until you get a good idea of what your natural psychic target is. Couple of notes. If your starting target seems a bit lame, like you see plants or something, don't worry, you do get to move on to other targets and senses. And if you're really struggling with interpretation, I would recommend going with your best guess and moving on to step 3. Now you've got your sense and your target. If you combine them, you've got your psychic ability. It might be clairsentience on objects, or claircognizance of thoughts. Whatever the combo is, I would recommend writing it down plus your experiences from the first 2 steps, because that experience is your first personal proof that there's something to this. After all, why would you feel or see anything unless you do have a soul and a natural psychic ability, and there is something to all this spiritual stuff? Try it, and if nothing happens, you've lost 10 minutes. If something does happen, you've gained the most versatile, exciting, lifelong skill there is. Step 3 is practicing your natural psychic ability. What you do is find your target, or mentally focus on it if it's something distant, and try to use your sense on it. It might help to recall the way you felt during step 1, when you got that taster of what your sense was. Replicate what you experienced then, but focused on your target. The closer you are, the easier it will be for that very first read. You want as quiet and controlled an environment as possible so you can concentrate. If it's objects, you can just pick up something in your room. If it's people, start with whoever you live with. Or sit on a bench and try to read someone just after they pass you. If it's something a bit more abstract, like future events, it's much more about mental focus, intending to place your attention on that target, and you can easily do that in your own personal space. If you're having trouble getting anything, it helps to word your intention again. Something like, I see, hear, feel, know this target, or I psychically read this as truthfully, clearly, and vividly as I can. That first impression you get might not make sense, feel weird, even achy, but don't let that put you off. It's been dormant for a long time. You're just rehabilitating that muscle. Take a minute, try again, and each time you do it, it should feel slightly more natural. Whatever you experience, You've just used your psychic ability for the first time. That's an achievement like no other, because you've just proven to yourself that you can do something that's meant to be impossible, that hardly anyone else can do. So hopefully you'll feel excited to develop this further, see what else you can do. And those are the 3 steps. Find out your psychic sense, find out your psychic target, use your sense on your target. It's really nothing mystical. I hope that all made sense, and with the explanation given beforehand, you were able to see the logic behind each step. Some very quick practical tips. You might be wondering what to expect, how quick you'll develop. Typically, it's going to feel weird at first, you won't know how to interpret what you're getting. That's something you can only really learn by practice, so keep going, with the knowledge that you are going to get better. If you're properly committed to it, it should only take a few days to start getting bits of useful information that you can understand. To get detailed reads every time, we're talking 2 weeks to a month of daily practice, which really isn't bad for learning something impossible. It's hardest at the start. Once you're over that, your psychic power tends to go up exponentially. You'll have multiple senses, be able to read anything, get the truth about anything, including your purpose, what you should do with your life. So keep going, even if you feel in the moment like you're not getting anywhere. Practice every day, even if it's for 10 minutes, but rest too. If you do it for too long at once, especially when it's still a bit weak and strained, you can get headaches or overly sensitive. If that does happen, just walk away. Do something physical like tidying up. When you're feeling better, you can intend and visualize a shield around you, protecting you from overstimulation, and also vocalize your intent to improve your control over and the comfort of your psychic ability. I highly recommend keeping a journal so you can see how you're developing, record experiences, successes, and creative ideas for where you want to take your psychic abilities next. You could start it by taking notes on what you've learned from this video, write what your psychic ability is once you do the first 2 steps, what happens when you try the third, and just carry on charting the whole journey as you psychically develop. As for next steps, stick with your first psychic ability until it comes easily, vividly, and accurately. I know it's exciting, and now you know what's possible, you'll want to do everything, but it's best to get that strong foundation first. When you do move on, use the same sense on a new but similar target. If you felt people's emotions, you could go on to their general character, energy, maybe thoughts. Once you've got a cluster of related targets that you're fairly confident with, say different aspects of a person, you can try a new sense on those same targets. What you don't want to do is go to something completely different, and it's like you're starting from scratch again. Just change either your sense or your target at once. It's best to go with the related ones or the next strongest ones, and you can just ask your soul that. Keep practicing your first abilities too. You might want to focus on the control you have over it, the level of detail you can read, how far away you can sense, and so on. You want to keep pushing yourself. Can I get information even in a distracting environment? Can I shorten the time it takes to prepare myself? Remember that there's no skill ceiling, and the potential growth is pretty much limitless. But the biggest improvement will come when you remove spiritual blocks and start healing those areas with intention. I'm not going to go into detail here because this video is about developing psychic abilities for beginners and I don't want it to be too long. But if you really want to go far with this and start being able to affect things as well as perceive, then this is what you need to be looking at once you've got the basics. There's a lot more information and psychic techniques on my TikTok, including the step-by-step method to remove blocks, another one to develop spiritual powers, also an exercise to help you see the truth behind things. If you liked this clear style and me actually giving proper information rather than airy-fairy nonsense, go check that out, like and subscribe here, all that stuff. Just a final word, thank you for being open-minded enough to listen to this. I know it was a lot of information at once and quite different to what you might have heard before, so if you really want to go for this, have psychic abilities, then make sure you take notes, really digest it, and of course, apply it. Developing psychic abilities is the most important thing you can do for yourself. For example, you can get to a stage where you can get answers to any question you ask just by closing your eyes and concentrating. You could find out any info that might help you with what you're facing, how to make yourself happiest. It's not some esoteric side hobby. You vastly improve your physical life too. So don't let distractions and obligations and all the nonsense out there stop you from doing this. Because it is real, it is worth your time, more than anything else, in fact. And you can do it. Go do those 3 steps and kickstart the journey of a lifetime.